Whispers in the margin. Sophia Reyes had perfected the art of invisibility. In the gleaming headquarters of Blackwood Innovations, she moved between the floors of financial analysis like a ghost, her suggestions whispered in meetings but attributed to others, her late nights recalculating projections unnoticed by anyone but the night janitor, Marcus. She wore muted colors that blended with the steel and glass architecture, and she'd learned to make herself small in a company that valued boldness and visibility. "Another weekend sacrifice to the corporate gods?" Marcus asked, emptying the trash beside her desk at 9 p.m. on Friday. Sophia smiled, pushing her wire-rimmed glasses back up her nose. "The Henderson account numbers don't match up. If we go into the quarterly meeting with these figures, we'll be promising investors something we can't deliver. And you're fixing it instead of flagging it to your boss because Thomas would just pass it to me anyway after making me sit through a lecture about team responsibility," she said, fingers flying across her keyboard. "This way I save us both the time." What she didn't say was that she'd spotted 3 similar discrepancies in the past month, all from the same senior analyst, Victoria Winters, who somehow never faced consequences for her careless work. Victoria, with her designer suits and connections to upper management, remained untouchable while Sophia quietly cleaned up her messes. Across town, Ethan Blackwood stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, the city lights creating a glittering backdrop to his reflection. At 35, he had built Blackwood Innovations from a garage startup to a technology empire. But success had constructed walls around him that grew higher with each billion added to his net worth. "The board is concerned about the Henderson presentation," Robert, his cousin and business partner, said from the leather couch. "The projection models seemed too optimistic." "I thought Thomas's team verified those numbers," Ethan replied, turning from the window with a frown. "On paper, yes. But something doesn't add up. We're promising a 22% return when the industry standard is hovering at 15%. If we're wrong, we lose credibility with our investors." Ethan rubbed his temples. "I'll go in tomorrow and review it myself." The next morning, Ethan walked through the quiet weekend office, expecting to find it empty. Instead, he found a light on in the financial division, illuminating a woman he couldn't immediately place, surrounded by spreadsheets and empty coffee cups. Sophia jumped when the door opened, nearly spilling her latest caffeine infusion across her revised projections. Her heart stuttered when she recognized Ethan Blackwood, a man she'd only seen from a distance at company events. "Sir, I didn't expect anyone to be in today," she stammered. Standing quickly, evidently, he said, taking in the organized chaos of her workspace. "And you are?" "Sophia Reyes, financial analyst, 3rd level. Ethan stepped closer, glancing at her monitor. "And what brings you in on a Saturday, Ms. Reyes?" She hesitated, caught between professional self-preservation and honesty. "The Henderson account, sir. The projections were optimistic. I'm recalculating based on actual performance metrics rather than aspirational targets." Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Surprise, then curiosity. "Show me." For the first time in 3 years at Blackwood Innovations, someone was actually seeing her work. And not just someone, him. Valuation adjustments. Monday morning arrived with unexpected changes for Sophia. Instead of her usual cubicle, she was directed to a glass-walled conference room where Ethan Blackwood stood waiting, his tailored suit a stark contrast to her modest attire. "Ms. Reyes," he said, gesturing to the seat beside him rather than across the table. "Thank you for joining this project on short notice." Sophia clutched her tablet nervously. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood, though I'm not sure why I'm here instead of Thomas or Victoria." "Because you saved the Henderson account from disaster," he replied simply, sliding a confidentiality agreement toward her. "Your work this weekend prevented us from misleading our investors with inflated projections. I need that level of integrity on a sensitive new acquisition." The door opened before she could respond, and Robert entered with several executives Sophia recognized from the upper floors, people who had never spared her a glance before. Now, they studied her with curious expressions as Ethan introduced her as the financial analyst who will be leading our valuation team. Victoria Winters, arriving last, froze momentarily at the doorway. Her perfectly lined eyes narrowed on Sophia before she composed herself, taking a seat as far from Sophia as possible. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Victoria said smoothly. "Thomas assigned me to this project last week. Plans change," Ethan replied without looking up from his notes. "Ms. Reyes has demonstrated exceptional attention to detail that this acquisition requires." For 3 hours, they discussed the potential purchase of Quantum Reach, a small but revolutionary quantum computing startup. Sophia's mind raced, analyzing risks and opportunities, occasionally offering insights that made Ethan nod approvingly. By the end, even Robert was taking notes on her observations. As the meeting concluded, Victoria intercepted Sophia in the hallway, her smile tight. "Quite the career advancement for someone so unassuming. I wonder what special qualities Mr. Blackwood sees in you." The implication stung, but Sophia straightened her shoulders. "Probably the same qualities that allowed me to catch the errors in your Henderson projections before they embarrassed the company." Victoria's smile vanished. "Enjoy your moment in the spotlight, Sophia. Not everyone is built for visibility or the scrutiny that comes with it." Over the following weeks, Sophia's life transformed. Her desk moved to the executive floor. Her workload shifted entirely to the Quantum Reach acquisition, and her invisibility evaporated. People who had walked past her for years now greeted her by name. Thomas, her former supervisor, suddenly found reasons to mention their close working relationship to Ethan. Most disorienting was working directly with Ethan himself. He requested her presence in meetings where her opinion was not only heard but expected. He valued her caution against his own optimism about Quantum Reach's technology, pushing her to defend her assessments rather than simply agreeing with his vision. "You're not doing anyone favors by withholding concerns," he told her one evening as they reviewed financials in his office, the skyline darkening outside his windows. "Especially me." "It's not always easy to tell the Emperor he might not be wearing clothes," she replied, then blushed at her own boldness. To her surprise, Ethan laughed, a genuine sound she realized she'd never heard from him before. "Is that how you see me? The Emperor from the fairy tale?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "You've built something extraordinary, and people are afraid to question your vision." "But not you. Not anymore," she said softly. "Not when the stakes are this high." Something changed between them that night, a shift from professional respect to something warmer. Ethan began sharing meals with her during late work sessions, asking about her background, her family in New Mexico, her abandoned dreams of starting her own financial consulting firm for small businesses. "Why did you give that up?" he asked. Sophia traced the rim of her coffee cup. "My father's medical bills after his stroke. I needed stability, health insurance. Corporate life provided that, even if it wasn't what I imagined for myself." "And now? What do you imagine for yourself now?" The question lingered between them, heavy with unspoken possibility. Before she could answer, Robert burst in with news that would complicate everything. Their competitor, Davis Tech, was making a counteroffer for Quantum Reach. Victoria's department had leaked their interest in the acquisition. The game had suddenly become much more dangerous and personal. Beyond spreadsheets, the Quantum Reach acquisition had become a corporate battlefield with Sophia unexpectedly at its center. What began as a straightforward valuation had evolved into a strategic chess match against Davis Tech, with late nights and tense negotiations becoming their new normal. Through it all, something else was growing between Sophia and Ethan, something neither had anticipated. "You need to see this," Sophia said one evening, entering Ethan's office without knocking, their formality long abandoned after weeks of intense collaboration. She placed her tablet before him, displaying a hidden liability in Quantum Reach's patent portfolio. Ethan studied the screen, then looked up at her with newfound concern. "This could invalidate their primary technology claim, which explains why they're so eager to sell quickly." She sank into the chair opposite him, exhaustion evident in the shadows beneath her eyes. "We need to adjust our offer or walk away entirely." Instead of frustration at this setback, Ethan's expression softened. "When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours, Sophia?" The unexpected personal question caught her off guard. "I'm fine." That wasn't what I asked. He closed his laptop decisively. We're taking a break. Right now. 30 minutes later, they sat in a small Italian restaurant 8 blocks from the office. A place with checkered tablecloths and no Michelin stars, a place where billionaires didn't typically dine. The owner greeted Ethan by name, surprising Sophia. "You know this place?" she asked as they were led to a corner table. "I funded Giovanni's first restaurant when I was barely making payroll for my own startup." Ethan smiled, the harsh lines of his face softening in the warm lighting. "When I succeeded, he insisted on opening this smaller place to never forget where he started. I come here when I need to remember the same thing." Over homemade pasta and wine, spreadsheets and acquisitions faded into the background. Ethan spoke about growing up with a brilliant but distant father who measured love in achievements. Sophia shared stories about her tight-knit family, her mother's death when she was 16, and how she'd become her father's caretaker after his stroke. "That's why the Henderson account mattered so much to you," Ethan realized. "You're someone who takes care of things, of people, even when it costs you. And you're someone who built walls to protect yourself from disappointment," she countered gently. "Even success hasn't made you feel secure?" The vulnerability between them was intoxicating. When Ethan's hand brushed hers while reaching for the bread, neither pulled away. Outside the restaurant, snowflakes began to fall, dusting Sophia's dark hair with white as they finally emerged hours later. "I've never talked to anyone like this," Ethan admitted as they walked slowly back toward the office, neither eager for the evening to end. "Not even Robert, and he's family." "It's easier with strangers," Sophia suggested. "You're not a stranger anymore." Ethan stopped walking, turning to face her beneath the glow of a streetlight. "You see me, not Blackwood Innovations, not the net worth, just me." The moment stretched between them, tension building as snowflakes melted on their coats. Ethan's hand rose, hesitantly brushing a snowflake from her cheek with gentle fingers. "Sophia, His phone rang, shattering the moment. Robert's urgent voice informed them that Davis Tech had increased their offer for quantum reach substantially. Information they shouldn't have known unless someone inside Blackwood was feeding them. Details. Reality crashed back around them. By morning, rumors spread through Blackwood Innovations that Sophia's rapid rise had more to do with Ethan's personal interest than professional merit. Victoria made sure these whispers reached every department, poisoning the respect Sophia had finally earned. "You should recuse yourself from the acquisition," Thomas suggested with false concern. "For appearance's sake? Because I'm doing my job too well?" Sophia challenged. "Because people are talking, and it's affecting morale." The walls of visibility were closing in, exactly as Victoria had warned. That afternoon, Sophia found herself alone in the elevator with Victoria, who studied her with calculated precision. "You know he does this with every new acquisition," Victoria said casually. "Find some undervalued asset to temporarily fixate on. Last year it was Jessica in legal. Before that, Amanda in product development." The words lodged like ice in Sophia's chest. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm telling you that when the quantum reach deal closes, your usefulness will end. That's how it always goes." Victoria's smile was almost sympathetic. "Unless you have information worth keeping you around." The elevator doors opened, but Sophia remained frozen in place, Victoria's words echoing in her mind. She'd always been invisible, but now she wondered if being seen, truly seen, was possible at all. System crash. The Quantum Reach acquisition entered its final phase with mounting tension. Davis Tech's aggressive counteroffers forced Blackwood Innovations into a precarious position, while internally the whispers about Sophia and Ethan grew louder. Their late-night strategy sessions continued. But something had changed. A careful distance had emerged between them, reinforced by Sophia's growing doubts. "The board is questioning our valuation," Ethan said during a particularly strained meeting. His tie loosened after hours of negotiations. "They think we're overreaching." "We're not," Sophia insisted, sliding forward her latest analysis. Quantum Reach's technology will revolutionize our entire security division. Davis Tech knows it too, that's why they're pushing so hard. Robert glanced between them, noting the tension. The board needs more than projections. They need certainty we're not being played against Davis Tech for a higher price. We need access to their developmental servers, Ethan mused. Verify their claims about implementation timelines. Their CEO refused that request twice, Robert reminded him. Then we need leverage. Ethan turned to Sophia. Any suggestions from our financial wizard? The nickname, once warming, now stung with Victoria's insinuations ringing in her ears. Their CFO, Daniel Powell, his previous company failed because he rushed implementation without proper testing. He's likely the one urging caution now. Ethan smiled. You've done your homework. It's my job, she replied flatly, gathering her papers. If there's nothing else, I have another meeting. She felt Ethan's eyes following her retreat, but she didn't look back. In the hallway, Thomas intercepted her with a thin folder. The board requested a review of all personnel involved in the acquisition, he said smoothly, including your complete employment history. Sophia's stomach tightened. My work speaks for itself. Indeed it does. Thomas's smile didn't reach his eyes. Though some wonder how an analyst who never distinguished herself suddenly became indispensable to our CEO. You should ask Victoria that question. Considering how often I've corrected her mistakes, Sophia responded, walking away before he could see how deeply his words cut. That evening, alone in her office, Sophia stared at her resignation letter on her screen. Perhaps disappearing was the easiest solution. Return to invisibility rather than face the growing scrutiny. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. I thought you might be here, Ethan said, stepping into her office without waiting for permission. He looked unusually disheveled, his customary composure fraying. You've been avoiding me. I've been working, she corrected, quickly closing the resignation letter on her screen. Sophia. He approached her desk, concern evident in his features. What's happening? Last week was a mistake, she interrupted. We lost perspective. Pain flashed across his face. Is that what you think? That this is just about the acquisition? Isn't it? She forced herself to meet his gaze. I'm valuable until Quantum Reach is secured, just like Jessica in legal and Amanda in product development before me. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Victoria, it doesn't matter who told me. What matters is whether it's true. Ethan raked a hand through his dark hair. I don't know who Jessica or Amanda are. I've never singled out employees the way Victoria described. He moved closer, his voice dropping. What I feel for you isn't something I've felt before. That terrifies me, Sophia. The raw honesty in his voice made her hesitate. But before she could respond, Robert burst through the door, his face ashen. We have a problem, he announced. Someone leaked our final offer to Davis Tech. They've matched it exactly and added incentives we can't counter. That's impossible, Ethan said. Only 3 people knew those numbers. Robert's gaze shifted to Sophia. The board wants answers. They're calling an emergency meeting, now. The boardroom felt cavernous as Sophia stood before 12 expressionless executives, Ethan and Robert seated among them. Thomas and Victoria waited near the back, Victoria's satisfaction poorly concealed. Ms. Reyes, the board chairman began, evidence suggests sensitive information was transmitted from your company computer to an external server yesterday evening. That's not possible, Sophia protested. We have the server logs, Thomas interrupted, distributing printouts that seemed to confirm their accusation. Your credentials were used to access confidential files that subsequently appeared in Davis Tech's possession. Sophia's mind raced. Someone had framed her, but how? She looked to Ethan, whose face had become an unreadable mask. Mr. Blackwood recommended you personally for this position, the chairman continued. His judgment is now in question as well. The room fell silent, all eyes on Ethan. His empire, his reputation, everything he'd built was being threatened because he had trusted her. In that moment, Sophia understood that her visibility had become a liability to them both. I resign, she said quietly, effective immediately. Hours later, having cleared her desk under security supervision, Sophia stood in the lobby of Blackwood Innovations for what she believed was the last time. The glass and steel that once intimidated her now seemed cold and sterile, a beautiful facade hiding ugly truths. As the elevator doors opened behind her, she heard his voice. "Sophia, wait!" She turned to find Ethan approaching, determination etched across his features. "You're innocent," he said, "and I'm going to prove it." Recalculated futures. 3 weeks after her resignation, Sophia sat in a small cafe across town, reviewing job applications that couldn't rouse her interest. Her reputation was tarnished. Financial firms were hesitant to hire an analyst who had allegedly leaked confidential information. Her phone vibrated with a text from her father. "Any news today?" She was composing a reassuring response when the chair across from her scraped against the floor. Looking up, she found Ethan Blackwood sitting down uninvited, looking both triumphant and exhausted. "You're a difficult woman to find," he said, placing a flash drive on the table between them. "That was intentional," she replied, staring at the device. "What is this?" "Your vindication." His eyes held hers steadily. "And Victoria's termination notice." Sophia's breath caught. "You found proof?" "We discovered a keylogger installed on your computer the day after you identified the patent liability issue. It recorded your credentials, which were then used to access and leak the information." Ethan leaned forward. "Robert found it after examining every machine involved in the acquisition." "Victoria," Sophia whispered. "Working with Davis Tech's CFO, the same Daniel Powell you researched. They had a previous connection we weren't aware of." Ethan's expression darkened. "She'll face industrial espionage charges along with Thomas, who helped conceal her activities." Relief flooded through Sophia, followed quickly by bitterness. "So my name is cleared. That doesn't undo the damage." "No," Ethan agreed softly. "It doesn't. I should have trusted you. I let appearances and politics influence me when I should have remembered who you really are." "And who am I according to Ethan Blackwood?" The question emerged with unexpected weight. The woman who stayed late fixing problems that weren't hers. Who sees what others miss. Who challenged me when everyone else just nodded. His voice lowered. The woman I haven't stopped thinking about since she walked out of my building. The confession hung between them as Sophia processed his words. "You could have called. Would you have answered?" When she didn't respond, he continued, "Besides, some things shouldn't be said over the phone. I owe you more than that." "You don't owe me anything. I owe you the truth," he insisted. "Quantum Reach is ours. Their board rejected Davis Tech after the espionage was revealed. The acquisition your insights shaped will transform Blackwood Innovations." He paused. "But none of it matters if you're not there." Sophia looked away. "I can't go back to being invisible." "I'm not asking you to." Ethan reached across the table, his fingers stopping just short of hers. "I'm asking you to consider a different future entirely." From his jacket, he withdrew a business proposal outlining a new division within Blackwood Innovations, a financial consulting firm for small businesses affected by technological disruption, the very dream she had abandoned years ago. "You would have complete autonomy," he explained as she scanned the document. "Your own team, your own client selection. No corporate hierarchy to navigate. This is..." Sophia struggled to find words. "Generous, but it's not charity," he interrupted. "It's investment in extraordinary talent. And it's entirely separate from us, from whatever this is between us." His expression softened. "I want to see what happens when you're truly visible, Sophia. Both professionally and personally. And if this us doesn't work, then you'll still have built something meaningful. Your vision, your terms." His hand finally covered hers. "But I'm betting it will work. I've become quite good at valuing underestimated assets." Sophia studied him, not the billionaire CEO, but the man who had seen her when no one else did. "You realize people will talk?" "Let them," Ethan replied. "I'm only interested in one person's opinion." 6 months later, Sophia stood addressing the first clients of Blackwood Community Finance, small business owners whose faces reflected the same mixture of hope and uncertainty she once felt. Behind them, Ethan leaned against the doorframe. watching with quiet pride as she outlined how technology could elevate rather than eliminate their businesses. Later, as they walked along the riverfront near her new offices, Sophia reflected on the journey from invisibility to partnership. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "The simplicity of before? When you were just the untouchable CEO and I was just another employee." Ethan laced his fingers through hers. "I miss nothing about a world where we couldn't do this," he said, lifting their joined hands. "Where corporate boundaries and others' expectations dictated our choices. Even with all the complications?" She thought of the board members still wary of their relationship, the occasional tabloid speculation, the careful separation they maintained between personal and professional matters, especially with the complications, he replied. "They remind me this is real, that you chose to be seen, and I chose to truly look." As the setting sun transformed the city's glass towers into columns of light, Sophia realized that visibility wasn't about being noticed by everyone. It was about being truly seen by someone who mattered, someone who valued not just what she could do, but who she was beneath the spreadsheets and strategies. "I have something for you," Ethan said, reaching into his pocket and producing a small velvet box. "Not a ring. Not yet," he clarified at her startled expression. "Something else first. Inside lay a key." "To what?" she asked. "To the building where Blackwood Innovations began. My first office. I've converted it into a home." His eyes held a vulnerability she'd come to treasure. "I thought perhaps we might start our own story there." Sophia closed her hand around the key, no longer the invisible assistant, no longer afraid of being seen. "I'd like that," she whispered. "I'd like that very much." In a world of glass towers and corporate hierarchies, they had found something authentic. Not because a billionaire had noticed someone invisible, but because two people had finally seen each other clearly, beyond titles and balance sheets, and chosen to build something real together.